All of this began with the creation of the universe by a prime celestial known as Erisham. Erisham created the sun and stars and brought balance to all life in the solar system. Erisham also created life on various planets until a predator creature appeared from the depths of space called Deviant. To protect life from deviants, Erisham finally sent the eternal gods from the planet Olympia, known as Eternals. The Eternals themselves consist of Circe, Icarus, Gilgamesh, Athena, Kingo, Phastos, Makari, Droog, Sprites and Ajak the leader. Eternals move around and come to a developing civilization by riding a box-shaped plane called Domo. At the beginning of the movie, set in 5000 BC, the Eternals arrived on Earth during Mesopotamian era. They started protecting humans from the deviants. Each Eternals had its own powers, such as Icarus, who can fly and shoot lasers from his eyes, Athena, who was able to create shields and swords from energy blast, Kingo, who could release energy from his hands, Gilgamesh, who was very strong, Makari, who had super speed, Phastos the technopath, Droog, who could manipulate thoughts, Sprites, who were experts in illusion, Ajak, who could heal, and Circe, who could turn inanimate molecules into whatever she wanted. The Eternals then decided to stay on Earth and protect humans from deviants. The scene moves to the present time in London, where Circe was now a museum scientist who opened classes to teach children about history. Circe was often accompanied by her human boyfriend named Dane. While teaching, suddenly there was an earthquake and an artifact almost fell on one of the girls. Circe immediately turned the artifact into sand. In the evening, Circe and Dane celebrated a birthday where Circe gave him an ancient ring. Sprite disguised as an adult woman, but still she cannot be with a man. The three of them returned home across the river bank, but suddenly they were blocked by a deviant named Crow. They were surprised because it had been thousands of years that deviants had not appeared. Eventually Sprites used her powers to taunt me, but unfortunately it didn't work, and Crow were able to recognize them. Fortunately Icarus came and immediately attacked Crow until he fell into the river and fled. They were surprised because the deviant was able to heal his own body despite being attacked. After the incident, Circe explained who she really was to the Dane and also mentioned the Eternals, who should not be involved in human conflicts, including when Thanos attacked the Earth. Circe also said that he had been married to Icarus for 5,000 years and eventually separated. Circe, Icarus and Sprite then returned to the apartment where they discussed the earthquake this afternoon and the appearance of defiance that may be related. They finally decided to meet Ajak and other members of the Eternals. Then the scene moves to show flashback to 575 BC in Babylon. After a fierce battle between Eternals and Deviants, Ajak communicated with Erisham using a small ball of energy that came from her body. Ajak said she started to worry about human life, but Erisham asked her to stay focused on Eternal's main purpose on Earth. Over time, Icarus confessed his love for Circe, and they were married in 400 BC and witnessed by members of the Eternal and Gupta empires. In 1521 AD in Tenochtitlan, there was a war of conflict between humans. Ajak instructed her members not to interfere in their conflict. Right in the midst of that incident, Athena experienced a phenomenon known as Mod Weary, where the psychology of an Eternals was disturbed due to too many memories they had acquired during their lifetime. In an unconscious state, Athena injured Circe and nearly killed Makari. Luckily, Ajak and Gilgamesh managed to overcome it. Ajak would erase Athena's memory, but Athena asked Ajak not to do it since she wanted to keep her memory. Gilgamesh promised Ajak that he would accompany Athena and take care of her when she lost consciousness. At that time Droog was still annoyed with humans who were always at war and finally tried to manipulate their minds to stop the war. He also said that if Ajak wanted to stop him, then she would have to kill him. Ajak finally let Droog go and asked the other Eternals members to separate and live their own lives. Back in the present, where Circe, Sprites and Icarus visit Ajak's residence in South Dakota. How surprised they were when they found a dead Ajak lying in her yard. While holding the body, suddenly the small ball that was in the Ajak's body was brought out and came into Circe's body. This makes Circe directly connected to Erisham and indicates that the invitee chooses Circe as her successor. Then the three of them went to meet the Kingo in Mumbai. Kingo has now become a Bollywood star. Kingo welcomed and introduced them to his manager named Karan Patel. Karen had worked with Kingo for 50 years, so he already knew the secret of the Eternals. Icarus tells Kingo that a Jack has been killed and asks him to join them. At first Kingo was hesitant because his career was at its peak, but Karen convinced him to go with the Eternals. The Eternals and Karen finally went to Australia to meet Gilgamesh and Thena. They finally met Gilgamesh and Thena, who were drawing in the middle of the desert. Thena suddenly lost consciousness and almost attacked the Eternals, but she was stopped by Gilgamesh and the sprite illusion. While everyone was eating, Circe came out and she saw the pictures Thena had made. The pictures show the destruction of several planets that Thena once inhabited. Gilgamesh said that Thena often said that a great earthquake was a source of destruction. Circe felt that yesterday's earthquake had something to do with it all. Circe finally communicated with Arishem. Arishem then explains the fact that the mission of the Eternals was not to fight the deviants, but to prepare Earth for the emergence. Arishem explains that, for millions of years, he has been planting the seeds of celestials inside planets, where the energy from large populations allow the celestials to be born. The deviants were sent to destroy the apex predators of each planet to ensure the development of intelligent life, but when the deviants evolved and began hunting the planet's native populations, Arishem created the Eternals to hunt them in turn. Every million years a new celestial will be born and create new life from the energy remnants of the destroyed planet. That was the cycle of life in the universe. After Earth has reached its population, the celestial named Tiamat will soon be born, or the event will be called as emergence. After that, Circe then told the other Eternals what she already knew. Since they're used to living with humans, then they don't feel like the Earth should be destroyed. Circe finally had a plan to euthanize celestial Tiamat with the help of Droog. They finally went to the Amazon to meet Droog, who turned out to live with the people he controlled his mind. Circe also informed Droog about the death of a Jack and the emergence. When suddenly the deviants came and attacked the Eternals. The Eternals also split up and fought the deviants with their respective strengths. During the battle, Gilgamesh asked Icarus to help the others. Circe managed to defeat the deviant figure and turn it into a tree. This made the others astonished because so far Circe had only been able to change inanimate objects. Meanwhile, Crow managed to defeat Gilgamesh and absorb his powers. He now has a human form and said that he would kill all the Eternals. Before he died, Gilgamesh told Thena to always remember him because he was the only one who could resuscitate Thena when she was experiencing mod weary. Then they buried Gilgamesh in that place. Droog finally agreed to join the Eternals, but he said if he was not strong enough to put the Celestials to sleep. They finally tried to find Phastos, who was an expert in technology. Droog said that Phastos had given up and stopped creating technology for humans since the atomic bomb he created was used for the city of Hiroshima in 1945. They finally met Phastos, who currently has a partner and a child named Jack. After joining them, all went to Iraq to find the Domo plane. Phastos immediately took Domo out of the sand, and they found that Makari had been living in the plane all this time. In order to increase their power, Phastos proposed that they create a device called the Unimant, through which every Eternals would connect and concentrate their power on an Eternal. But not all of them agreed, especially Icarus and Sprite, who wanted the emergence to happen for the sake of new life. The scene then shows a flashback 6 days later wherein a Jack was talking to Icarus. The Jack said that 5 years ago, when Thanos wiped out half of the universe's population, he actually prevented the birth of the celestial Tiamat. But the Avengers restore the lost human population so that the celestial will rise again. A Jack, who saw the struggle of the Avengers to protect humans, was inspired to stop the rise of the Celestials for the sake of humanity. Icarus then took him to an oil mine in Alaska and showed some deviants that emerged from the inside due to warming that occurred on Earth. Icarus said that he did not agree with a Jack, and it was unexpected that Icarus pushed her to the ground and she was attacked by the deviants. Crow finally sucked up the power of a Jack so that he and the other deviants could now regenerate. Icarus brought the body with him to her yard and made it look as if she was attacked by a deviant in that place. Return to the present, where the Eternals were gathering. Cersei sensed the emergence had begun, and Phastos told Makari to find the emergence point. Makari discovered that the emergence will occur in a volcano in the Indian Ocean. Icarus suddenly came and destroyed Phastos' Unimman designs. He said that he would fight against all that hindered the Celestials' birth. All Eternals then knew the fact that Icarus was the cause of the death of Ajak, and he already knew about the emergence before the other Eternals. That's why Ajak should choose Cersei instead of Icarus, who was the strongest Eternals. Cersei then had a doubt, because right now Icarus was now against the Eternals. Athena then convinced Cersei that Ajak must have chosen her for a reason. Phastos suddenly came and gave the idea to make a unique bracelet from the small ball of energy in Cersei's body, and he succeeded. After wearing the bracelet, Phastos, Cersei, Makari, Droog, and Athena went to Emergence Point and began to connect their power. Just as Droog was trying to control the celestial Tiamat's mind, Icarus suddenly attacked him and burned the Droog with his laser gaze. Seeing this, Makari became angry and attacked Icarus repeatedly. Cersei asked the others to restrain Icarus while she would approach the celestial Tiamat and turn him to stone. When the Eternals were facing Icarus, suddenly Crow appeared to absorb the energy possessed by Icarus. This was immediately prevented by Athena, who did have a grudge against Crow, who had killed Gilgamesh. Athena almost lost, and her energy was going to be absorbed by Crow that resembled Gilgamesh, but finally Athena came conscious and immediately cut over Crow's body. Cersei then approached Celestial Tiamat, who was starting to appear. She was briefly blocked by the illusion of a sprite that resembled Ajak. When Cersei caught her off guard, Sprite stabbed her in the back, but luckily Droog came and beat Sprite unconscious. Cersei immediately tried to change Tiamat into stone. Seeing this, Icarus became angry, and after he managed to escape, he tried to kill Cersei, but because Icarus loved Cersei, he couldn't kill her. The energy of all Eternals then connected. Apparently the energy of the Eternals was able to merge due to the emergence of the Celestials themselves. Cersei managed to turn the celestial Tiamat into a stone statue. Icarus, who felt guilty, chooses to fly and immerse himself in the sun. After that incident, Cersei, who still had some energy left, turned Sprite into a human so he could grow up to be an adult just the way she always wanted. Later, the Eternals gathered at the Ajak house. Athena, Makari, and Droog went on Domo to outer space in search of the other Eternals. Meanwhile, Phastos chose to stay on Earth with his son. Cersei entrusted Sprite to Kingo and Karen. Then, while walking with Dane in the park, Dane professed his love for Cersei, and he was about to reveal a secret about his family history when she, Phastos, and Kingo were dragged into space by Arishem. Displeased with their treason, Arishem said that he will spare humanity if the Eternals' memories show that humans are worthy of living. Vowing to return for judgment, he takes the trio with him into a singularity. In the end credits, Athena, Makari, and Droog were seen wondering about the disappearance of their three Eternal companions. When suddenly a portal appears, and a trolley-like creature named Pip and Eternal from another planet named Eros enter the plane. Eros turns out to be the Eternal leader on the planet he lived on, and he was the brother of Thanos, which means Thanos was also an Eternals. Eros said if he knew where his three Eternal companions had disappeared to. Elsewhere, Dane found an ebony blade, then a voice was heard asking if he was ready for something. So that's how the movie ends. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe and bell button so you will not miss the next video. See you soon.